Hey guys, how are you all doing? This is the MMA breakdown with my predictions for UFC Tough 19 finale. This card's getting a lot of hate. I will say I think the main card is better than people are giving it credit for being. I think it's really weird putting this card on Sunday right after the big pay-per-view. I don't think any casual fans are really going to tune in to see this, but they should have stuck Edgar and Penn on that pay-per-view. I think that would have made it a lot better. Obviously, they couldn't put on this card without that, but I think it would be a lot. We the consumers would like it a lot better if Edgar and Penn was on that on the 175 pay-per-view. But on the main card, a very important fight between Justin Scoggins and Dustin Ortiz. Very important for both guys and for the flyweight division. And people should definitely take notice of this fight. It's buried on this card that is just at this weird time and it's filled with a bunch of other fights that don't matter, but it's a real important one. But let's get into the card. I'm going to try to run through this real quickly. It is the night before UFC 175. Got my picks in late here, but I'm hoping some of you can still watch the video. But let's get to it. Starting off with the Fight Pass preliminary card at light heavyweight. Robert Drysdale fighting Keith Barish. Drysdale, only seen highlights of his other fights. I know he's a jiu-jitsu coach. Has his own gym. I think. Yeah, I don't know much about him, but 6-5 win streak, all by submission. I'm not really gonna make a pick here, although I think Drysdale's the guy to go with, but I don't know anything about Keith Barish, but I'm kind of excited to see Drysdale. I know he's supposed to make his debut. I can't even remember when. It might have been a year ago or even sooner than that, but or before that, but should be a fun light heavyweight fight. Next up, women's bantamweight, Sarah Morris taking on Alexis Dufresne. Sarah Morris from Tough 18. She got a win. Who was it over? I think it was Peggy Morgan. She beat someone in the house in her first fight. I think it was an armbar win. I actually thought she looked pretty good. Pretty good wrestler, submission fighter. And then lost to the eventual winner. Can't remember her name. The Venezuelan Vixen, but I don't know anything about Dufresne, so again, not really qualified to make a pick here, but I'd say maybe Morris. I think she looked pretty good on the show, got a win, but really I don't know, so I'm not really gonna make a pick there. Moving on to the Fox Sports 1 preliminary card, light heavyweight, Patrick Walsh taking on Dan Spohn, two guys from Tough 19. Kind of surprised that they're on here, considering how much Dana White has bashed this season, saying it's the worst season ever, which I definitely agree. I've been watching Tough since Tough 10. And it's getting every season it's getting pretty boring and progressively worse, but I don't really know why these two guys are on here. Patrick Walsh, I will say, I thought he kind of got robbed against Corey Anderson, especially that all the judges said that was a 30-27. I thought that second round against Corey Anderson, I thought he clearly won that round, but Patrick Walsh, tough fighter, has no technique on his feet, just gets by on pure heart, has this very bad style of keeping his hands down low at his waist. tries to use a lot of head movement, kind of throws his shots from odd angles. His stand-up looks pretty awkward, but it's semi-effective. He was able to land some big bombs on Corey Anderson, never really hurt him, but Daniel Spohn, I think, is going to be far more athletic, and I think he will have the grappling advantage. Walsh out-wrestled Anton Burzin in his first fight in the house. But Daniel Spohn, his wrestling looked a lot more dominant against Todd Monaghan. And then I was not really impressed with Spohn losing to Van Buren in the way he did. He got a big knockout in his fight to get in the house, and he just didn't look like he had the pace to keep up with Van Buren on the feet. But I expect Daniel Spohn to just out-wrestle this guy all day. Patrick Walsh. Walsh is tough. He might be able to make it interesting on the feet, but I'm taking Spohn. I just think he's too athletic and a better wrestler than Walsh. Next up at lightweight, a fight that I'm actually... I think this is the third best fight on the card behind the main event in Scoggins Ortiz, but Adriano Martins versus Juan Manuel Pig Carreon. I don't know how to pronounce that, but Martin's a guy to pay attention to. This guy, I think, as he gets more fights under his belt, I think he can get some work done in the lightweight division. He had a very impressive debut win over Darren Cruikshank, who is coming off of a huge win of his own over Eric Koch. But Martin's huge for lightweight. And in that fight with Cruikshank looked very impressive. He knocked down Cruikshank at least twice with like a step-in jab. Didn't look like he had a lot of wind-up and was able to really hurt him with short, precise shots. And got on top of Cruikshank, I think it was in the second round, locked up a Kimura and easily submitted him. Looked very impressive. And then his next fight got a big step up against Donald Cerrone. And he hung with Cerrone on the feet in that fight. When did that fight end? It ended in the first round, but he got his fair share of shots in on Cerrone, and that fight was pretty even on the feet until Cerrone landed a high kick that knocked Martins out cold. But Martins did very well, made that fight competitive with Cerrone. And I don't know anything, again, about Juan Manuel, but I will make a pick here. I will take Martins. I'm excited to see him again. I think he's a talented guy, and I think he really got rushed too quickly fighting Cerrone. But expect him to make some noise at lightweight, Adriano Martins. I will pick him by submission, by the way, just because he looked really strong there against Cruikshank. Next up at Bantamweight, Jumabieke Tuerxun taking on Leandro Issa. Jumabieke, he fought Mark Adiva. I think it was on the Tough China finale card in March. And that was a pretty boring, uneventful fight. I don't remember much about it. He didn't make an impression on me at all. I remember Adiva just kind of showing average kickboxing, but looking better than Jumabieke, so I really don't have any thoughts about him. I don't think he's really UFC caliber, at least from what I saw against Adiva. And Leandro Issa, on the other hand, lost to Russell Doan in his UFC debut in Singapore, and he's getting beat up on the feet. It's clear he's a supposedly really talented guy from the jiu-jitsu world, really high-level black belt, but it's clear that his striking was not good enough to hang with even at the low level of the UFC. Did manage the luck of a triangle on Doan at one point, couldn't finish it though, and ended up getting put to sleep in a triangle by Doan. So I don't know, tough fight to call. I want to say Jumabieke. I just think his kickboxing. I don't believe he got a takedown on Ediva. I think that whole fight was contested on the feet. I think an average kickboxer might be enough to beat Issa. I don't think Issa has enough of a wrestling game, at least, not. We didn't see anything like that against Doan. I think he'll be able to get this to the ground on his own terms. If they do end up on the ground, Issa might be able to lock something up in a transition or a scramble. But I'll take Juma Bieke, but really two guys that I just don't care about seeing in the UFC. I think they're both pretty low-level fighters and not UFC caliber. Next up, last fight on the preliminary card. Lightweight Kevin Lee taking on Jesse Ronson. Kevin Lee, I actually thought looked pretty impressive against Ally Quinta in his debut. That was a pretty back and forth fight, a real brawl. Kevin Lee had his moments. I think he took Iaquinta's back at one point. I think he also attempted a knee bar in that fight, but it just seemed like a pretty aggressive guy, willing to engage and take chances. Jesse Ronson, on the other hand, a much more methodical fighter. He lost to, in his debut, I believe, who was it? I think he lost to Prazeres. Hold on, I need to pull up his page here. I think he lost to Prazeres and, was it Trinaldo? Jesse Ronson. Yeah, he lost to Prazeres and Trinaldo. Both guys were able to basically out-grapple him. Ronson did get stronger against... he did get stronger against Prazeres. I believe it was against Prazeres in that third round. He got a real nice slam on him. High crotch takedown. Looked pretty good. I think he won that third round. But just doesn't seem active enough, doesn't seem to have the firepower. I think Kevin Lee will take this one. He just seemed much more willing to go forward and mix things up, so I'm taking Kevin Lee. And on to the main card on Fox Sports 1. And this is the most intriguing fight on this card and very important. At flyweight, Justin Scoggins versus Dustin Ortiz. Justin Scoggins has a lot of hype around him. Had a great debut win over Richie Vasilik. Looked very good, very aggressive with his striking. Was able to, I think he drops Vasilik, took his back, pounded him out. And in his last fight against Will Campazano, not nearly as aggressive, but still won that fight clearly. Was able to outstrike Campazano, really control the striking. And he landed a few takedowns, as I remember. But Scoggins just looks like one of these guys who's very talented, very fundamentally and technically sound. Dustin Ortiz, though, I think this is going to be a tough test for Scoggins. And a huge step up, I think, from Will Campazano and Vasilik. Especially Vasilik, I think, is just, the lowest level of fighter, even at in a very thin division like flyweight. But Dustin Ortiz, real gritty wrestler, got a finish in his debut over Jose Maria Tome. Was able to take him down a few times and pounded him out eventually in the third round. Then he fought John Moragan, a fight a lot of people thought he won. I actually thought he lost it. But he did take Moraga down, I think, for 2 rounds. He really, or at least one round very clearly, he controlled Moraga. And then against Ray Borg, who's also another very talented flyweight, just coming off of a win last weekend. Another tough grappling fight with him. Was able to get top position on Borg. Got his back taken a few times, but that's Borg's specialty. but just a hard-nosed, persistent wrestler. That's his real strength. I don't think he's going to be good enough on the feet, though, to hang with Scoggins. Scoggins has shown good wrestling himself, I think. And, Ortiz could just be that tough guy that outworks Scoggins. Is a little too gritty for him right now. Scoggins is super young. But I think Scoggins has the more complete game, and I think he's shown a pretty good work rate in his fights. I'm taking Scoggins to get the decision win here, but competitive, close fight, I think. And I think Ortiz is going to provide a real good test for Scoggins. I don't think he's going to dominate him like he did his past two opponents. Next up at heavyweight, Derek Lewis taking on Guto Inocente. Inocente, I don't know anything about. Looking at his page here, let's take a look at his record. 6-2. I don't know anything about his fighting style. And Derek Lewis coming off of his debut win over Jack May, or just had some real raw athleticism and brute power in that fight. I think Jack May was going for a takedown. Derek Lewis was able to spin out of it, ended up I think he was either in the sprawl position or had his back, but he just rained down some heavy ground and pound, real sheer violence, very brutal. So I'm not really gonna. I don't want to make a pick here. I don't know anything about Inocente, but Derek Lewis I think looked pretty solid in his win over Jack May, and I think he's gonna have some fun fights at heavyweight. You know what? I will make a pick. I'll just take Derek Lewis. I think his power gets it done. I'll take Derek Lewis. And next up, now we're getting into the tough finale fights. At middleweight, Eddie Gordon taking on Diego Lima. Both these guys, first off, I think are very small for middleweight. But I'm taking Lima here. He was the only guy to finish. He finished both of his fights in the tough house, but he was the only fighter to finish anyone in the house. And Eddie Gordon, he looked solid. Was really able to control the striking range against Mike King, who was the taller fighter, longer fighter it seemed. But Eddie Gordon seems to have pretty sound, decent boxing, just doesn't seem to really go for the kill or have much of a finishing instinct. Doesn't seem to go forward too much. And then against Cathal Pendred, Pendred just tried to take him down, press him up against the fence that whole fight. And Gordon did get taken down, but I think he got a takedown of his own in there. And I thought he won that decision over Pendred. And defended the takedown better than I thought he would. So I think he's going to be a better guy than the guys Lima has already beaten. I can't remember who Lima... Well, let's see here. Lima beat... I know he just beat Zapata, submitted him real quickly with a nasty-looking armbar. But in his first fight, he beat Tim Williams. And that was in the second round. That first round was kind of rocky for Lima. Gordon, I wouldn't count out that he wins a decision here. His striking might be a little too effective against Lima. I think not that he hurts Lima, but just outpoints him. But Lima, you got to go with the guy with the killer instinct. I think he manages to get this to the ground, and I think he submits Gordon like he's done to everyone else. Really liked his enthusiasm and his fire that he showed in his fights in the house. I'm excited to see Lima fight again. I think he wins this, but Eddie Gordon I think is a solid test and a much better fighter than the other two guys that he beat. Next up, a light heavyweight, Corey Anderson taking on Matt Van Buren. Kind of an interesting fight. I thought, like I already said, I thought Patrick Walsh kind of got robbed by Anderson in that fight. Anderson, before he fought Walsh, I thought he was I I thought he was clearly the best guy on the show. He out wrestled who was it? Josh Clark in his first fight before Walsh. Looked like a pretty solid wrestler, but couldn't do much with the ground and pound or looking for a submission. And then against Patrick Walsh, I think he worked his wrestling that first round. I remember giving him that first round clearly. And then the second round, Walsh was just able to land some big bombs on him on the feet. And Anderson had the more technical striking game, but Walsh was able to land some bombs. And I think if Van Buren is able to mix it up on the feet and defend the takedown enough, I think he can make it interesting on the feet. I do think Van Buren has bigger power than Anderson, and Van Buren really impressed me in his last win over Daniel Spohn. Just looked completely different than he did against Chris Fields. Against Fields, I thought he looked terrible. Fields even managed to rock him, I think, in that second round. And Spohn, after out wrestling Van Buren in the first round, taking his back, Van Buren just came alive in that second round. He ate some big shots, but he landed some big shots, and he hurt Spohn and knocked him out. I do give Van Buren the advantage on the feet, but at the end of the day, I think Anderson wins the decision, being able to out wrestle Van Buren. And next up, the main event, Frankie the Answer Edgar taking on BJ Penn. I've got to say, I think the UFC has really ruined Edgar's career since he lost the title to Ben Henderson the first time. I thought Henderson won that fight, and there was no need to do an immediate rematch. Instead, they dragged him into this rematch, which I thought he clearly won the rematch and got robbed there. But then they send him down to featherweight and give him an immediate title shot, which I didn't think was a good idea because, if you just come down and fight for the title, and he did pretty well. I actually thought, I scored that fight for him, but obviously very close. He fought for the title in his first fight at featherweight, and then, I kind of anticipated it, like he's just going to kind of be forgotten about. He doesn't have a resume to fall back on at featherweight. He kind of has to work backwards. He fights for the title, and then he has to build up a streak of wins at featherweight to get that shot again. Just didn't make sense to me. He fought Charles Oliveira, which, Oliveira, a very talented fighter, and Edgar didn't look great in that fight. He did win it, though. And now they take him out to film this season with BJ Penn. A terrible season. The fight that just doesn't make any sense. Just a huge waste of time, a long time for him to sit out in his career, and I still don't understand why he's fighting BJ Penn. I mean, they're just giving Penn, what he wants. And Edgar beat him twice already. And BJ Penn is not... BJ Penn has been fading since the John Fitch fight. And I don't think he's been the same... That fight was competitive. I don't think he was the same since the Rory McDonald fight. But BJ was fading long before then. He was fading against Fitch. He couldn't come out and compete in that third round. Just got taken down and dominated. The fight against Nick Diaz started off strong. Then again, just got beat up. Rory McDonald beat him up. And Rory McDonald, that fight was a year and a half ago. And those fights were at welterweight. BJ Penn hasn't fought at lightweight since August of 2010, right? Almost 4 years ago. And now he's going to fight at featherweight after fighting at welterweight for the last 4 years. I don't know that he even makes the weight, but The first fight against Edgar, Penn, I think he won that. I haven't watched it too many times. He probably won that fight, but the second fight got badly outworked by Edgar, got dominated, out-grappled, and Edgar hit him with some big ground and pound shots. Was beating him on the feet, and then just had the win over Matt Hughes and the draw against Fitch, but hasn't been able to win since then. Edgar, still the younger, fresher guy. I think he's still obviously way more athletic than Penn at this point. And Penn really took a beating in those in the Diaz and McDonald fights. I don't see at all how he's going to win this. Edgar's just the younger fighter with a lot of life still left in him. Edgar's only 3 years younger than Penn, but and he's had his fair share of brawls, but he just hasn't slowed down as much as Penn has. Against McDonald, Penn just could not do anything, completely lost, and Edgar, with his footwork and all the movement he uses, I don't think Penn's going to be able to keep up with that. It didn't work for Penn, even though he won the first fight, I think. Edgar still really confused him with that footwork, and in the second fight also. I'll be shocked if Penn wins, and the only way that this fight is relevant for Edgar is if he finishes Penn, something that hasn't happened since, the second Pierre fight? It was like 5 or 6 years ago. 2009, 5 years ago. He's already beat him twice, and just getting a decision win the same way. That's why I'm saying I think the UFC's really ruined Edgar's career, with this fight. Just made him waste so much time and dragging him back into this trilogy that, there's no need for. I don't see Penn being competitive at all. I don't think Edgar finishes him if he can't finish Oliveira. I don't think he really finishes a guy like Penn, who I will give him that he's very tough, but I just don't see Penn being able to compete. I think he hasn't been training. He hasn't been training for a fight since McDonald, which is 1.5 years ago. That's huge, right? I mean, how could it not be? Even if he's training, it's not the same unless you're training for a fight. Got to go with Edgar. I think he's going to win a decision. I think it's going to look the same as the second fight. Pretty dominant. I really hope he can get that finish just so Edgar can come away with something after this fight. Hopefully he can get that finish and really make a claim to fight for the belt again. If Penn wins, the whole world will turn upside down. I'll be shocked. It'll be incredible. And I'm not trying to say Penn isn't a great fighter, and he's had an amazing UFC career, but beat up in his last 2 fights. Those fights came very far apart, and really hasn't looked competitive since he fought John Fitch, which was 4 years ago. Got to take Edgar by decision. So those are my predictions for the TUF 19 finale. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. I'll be back with a recap for this event as well as UFC 175, and then I'll be back with my predictions for Fight Night 45, Cerrone versus Miller. And check out my picks for 175. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Please like the video, comment, subscribe. Take care. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.